Welcome to part 2 of the Cohesive Game Experience series. In the last video, which I would suggest to check out if you haven't already, we discussed what Cohesive Game Experience is as a concept. Today, we're going to look at several games through the lens of this concept. As I've mentioned in the last part, this is a huge topic, so we're just going to analyze the most important aspects. Our first example is Hearthstone.
It is said that wars are only won upon the anvil of honor.
Others believe victory requires strategy and a mastery of power.
War is deception, a game played best from the shadows.
Only strength and raw power can assure total dominance.
But of course, you could forget all that and just have fun! Hearthstone!
Defining fantasy you want to provide to players is key for creating cohesion, and this key art shows pretty well what the fantasy of Hearthstone is. You're an inhabitant of the world of Warcraft who decided to play a card game with tavern patrons and have some fun. Now, let's look how Hearthstone goes about reinforcing this fantasy from the very first moments.
Pull up a chair by the hearth.
The game hasn't even properly started yet, and everything is oozing with atmosphere. Let's try to break things down a little bit. First, the loading screen that looks like doors into the tavern we're about to enter. Second, the innkeeper who greets us with a random phrase every time.
Pull up a chair by the hearth.
Third, the music that we hear is not some ambient or metal music, but cheerful instrumental music that would fit in a tavern. And last but not least, the box, which is essentially the center of all experience, as this is the box that contains the playing fields and cards that we're using. That is the box that we, as Warcraft world dwellers, interact with to play the game. To reach cohesiveness, Blizzard implements a lot of very small details that make the game feel like it's part of the Warcraft universe, as well as give a sense of physicality, but some of them may even go unnoticed by players. When you move the card around with your mouse or finger, it tilts. The faster you move, the more it tilts, and if you move really fast, it will also make whooshing paper noises.
An incredible discovery!
This is the kind of thing that most won't consciously notice. Rarely you'll find somebody saying, "Oh wow, look how these cards are tilting, that is awesome." But it's still important, as it provides the feeling that you're actually holding a card. And a lot of other details are important as well, like the interactive playing fields, hero modes, minion quotes, and so on. And note that I haven't even yet said a thing about the gameplay mechanics themselves. That's because there is a big difference between a collectible card game with quality mechanics and a collectible card game with quality mechanics that engages you on many levels. Imagine we will strip down Hearthstone from everything we said, the box, the music, the tilting cards, and just would have abstract representation of all mechanics. That'll be an absolutely different experience. Blizzard can afford to add tons of small little details because Hearthstone takes place in a small game world. Everything revolves around that one box. This doesn't mean that there is not a lot of work, quite the opposite. However, the larger the game world is, the harder it is to fill it with so many details. Resources aren't unlimited after all. So let's go on the opposite side of the game world size spectrum and take a look at one of the ways you could keep it cohesive, on the example of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. One of the big reasons I want to talk about Brotherhood, besides it being open world, is the fact that I think it's a prime example of why cohesion is so important. If we look at the game, take it apart and analyze each piece on its own, we'll find that there is not a small amount of flaws and wrinkles to be found. And yet, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood stays at 90 Metacritic rating, is considered as one of the favorites of the series by many fans, and, while I don't have the exact numbers, has sold very well, I presume. That's because of a point I've mentioned in the previous video. Players don't care as much about the quality of each individual component of the game, they care about how it all works together. For the sake of exercise, let's take a look at some of the bigger flaws in Brotherhood. The narrative is very standard, black and white, good versus evil, with a very disappointing antagonist.
Why did you not stop them? Guards! 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 No! 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 No!
The combat system is ridiculously easy. In addition to the previous game's counterattacks, we also have kill streaks that are the most dominant combat move. There are many new overpowered instruments like, let's say, crossbow, which combines the benefits of throwing knives and hidden pistol without any of the flaws, making the other two tools irrelevant. And the core of the game, the Brotherhood itself, is essentially a cheat code that allows you to easily complete most of the objectives in the game. However, these flaws are either unnoticed or forgiven by the players, and I would even add that in the context of the whole game, they might not be even considered flaws. So what is the primary method Assassin's Creed Brotherhood uses to immerse players into its experience? It is setting a global goal that pretty much all activities in the game revolve around. Defeat the Borgia and liberate Rome.
You are the leader of the assassins now. Unite them, Ezio Auditore, and take back Roma.
We have the main missions during which you, well, do that and kill Cesare. There's the Borgia Towers that you destroy to liberate districts in the game, allowing you to get into the economy loop.
It seems the stable is now available for purchase.
After you.
Faction missions where you take care of your main target's allies. Layers of Romulus, acrobatic tomb levels during which you uncover the Borgia conspiracy behind the followers of Romulus, a sect that terrorizes citizens. War Machine missions, where you go outside of Rome to destroy weapons that Leonardo da Vinci has unwillingly built for the Borgia. Templar agents are, well, obviously Borgia allies that you need to kill and also act as a connection to the multiplayer mode. Flags, collectibles that aren't just a random thing, but flags of the Borgia house specifically, by removing which you essentially remove the influence of the family in the city. And last, but not least, the Brotherhood itself, that you build by recruiting oppressed citizens and training them to assist you in your fight against the Borgia. There are some unrelated activities, of course, but this focus on the goal of liberating Rome and defeating Borgia allows to give meaning and context to all your actions in the game. Everything you do serves a purpose. You don't get a situation where the main villain is going to destroy the world in a week while you're spending your whole day chasing chicken. Well, and the context of Animus being a simulation also helps. But more than that, when things are properly contextualized and nothing feels out of place, the game transforms into memories. I played Assassin's Creed Brotherhood for the first time back in 2011 while I was studying in Canada. It was just released for PC. I still remember how by the end of the game I'd climb Castello Sant'Angelo while commanding my assassins to take care of guards in the vicinity. At the time, you don't care that it's kind of a one-button cheat code, because you're the culmination of everything you did in the game so far. Your home was destroyed, you got your home weak and wounded, but you've liberated it, rebuilt the Brotherhood to its former strength, and now you're going on your last assignment Mission Impossible style. That's what stays with you. Those feelings and emotions that you get from moments like these. Not a flawed mechanic that lets you kill 50 people without trying. That's why cohesion is so important, and why it can be problematic if it's lacking. So let's take a look at another game from the Assassin's Creed series, Unity. Now, from the get-go, I'd like everybody to forget about the technical issues that the game was released with. They were fixed and at this point not relevant. Let's talk about the game itself. If we do the same exercise as we have with Brotherhood, dividing the game into separate components, we'll see that everything's pretty good actually. The high-quality main missions, a combat system without dominant moves, great co-op levels, and many more well-done things. But yet, the game doesn't have a following of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood's size. Why is that? Well, the reason is that while all the different aspects of the game on their own are high quality, when put together, everything's pretty disjointed. You don't need a global goal like in Brotherhood to keep everything together, that's just one of the possible solutions, but you do need to make sure that all the different aspects of the game interact with one another. To explain what I mean exactly, I want to show you one scene from the game, the final cutscene of the mission where we escape from Bastille.
What are you waiting for, Pisspot? It's time to jump.
What? Prison scrambled your brains, old man.
Drink took care of that a long time ago. Now get up here!
I can't, that's impossible.
Impossible? That's the purview of every assassin boy. If you can pluck your head out of your own arse, come find us. Make a great fit. Goodbye, Pisspot! You! Back away from the ledge!
I'll be honest, I absolutely adore this scene. It's so awesome, but let's talk about it in the context of the whole game. If you haven't played Unity, or have played it quite a while ago, you might get the impression that this is our first leap of faith in the whole game. I mean, it makes sense, right? An epic situation, escape from Bastille while it's being stormed, a reluctant main character whose doubts we help to overcome by pressing the buttons shown on the tutorial prompt, and a cool flying camera pan around Paris which is then unlocked as a location to explore. This moment happens at around an hour and a half mark, and is supposed to provide a very high level of excitement both for new and veteran players. But it doesn't. The main reason being that it's not our first leap of faith, in fact. Leap of faith is an ability that we have in the game from the very beginning. It's not locked behind story beats like some other skills we can acquire. More than that, in one of the very first missions, there is a mandatory leap of faith tutorial with a very mundane context.
What I need is a bird's eye view.
That alone makes the moment in Bastille less effective. But let's not forget that while we're not in Paris, we still have a little explorable open world, Versailles. And since there is a world to explore, an ability that the player can use and has been taught means that they'll be doing Leap of Faith again and again and again and again, thus making the Bastille moment more and more irrelevant. And if the player does Leap of Faith enough times, not only that moment will be irrelevant and not as effective, but it can also cause confusion or frustration. First, it shows a tutorial prompt, which can be frustrating enough when you've already had a tutorial for this and know how to do it. Second, you start questioning, what are Noe so afraid of, when so far Leap of Faith has been part of a course for him? So we have a situation where narrative, gameplay systems and level design make sense on their own, but together they provide a quite confusing experience that lacks cohesion. And this doesn't mean that the game is bad, but it does mean that these inconsistencies is something that players need to purposefully look past by to enjoy the game properly, and only a specific part of the player base does that. In case of Unity, I'm part of that specific player base. There are many things that I love about Assassin's Creed Unity, and I fully 100%ed the game, but I understand people who don't feel it's engaging enough, because, as was mentioned a couple times already, the majority of people care about what feelings and emotions they get from the sum of all parts. And in the next and final video of the series, we're going to talk about which guidelines to follow if you want to create a cohesive game experience. Mind you, it's not going to be a silver bullet. And let's not forget the fact that game development is a very complex process, and there are many reasons why some of the guidelines can't be easy to follow in some cases, but it will help to keep them in mind. Until then, feel free to leave any comments for the video. I'll be happy to participate in a conversation about cohesion, and if you liked the video, hit up those like and subscribe buttons. And if you'd like, consider supporting my work on Patreon. A special thank you goes to Paolo Di Stefano for his continuous generous support. Thank you very much.